and welcome to Early Beginnings for Lifelong Mental Health. I'm Dr. Justine Pavlukevich. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and also a mental health therapist. I teach as a professor at the City University of New York in the Human Services Department, as well as the Master's in Disability Studies. I'm also a board member here at Freedom from Fear. Freedom from Fear is a mental health advocacy program. We're on Facebook. You can find us on the website at www.freedomfromfear.org and take a look at it because it has really good information about stories of people who have anxiety, depression, bipolar, mental illness, resources, and also links to other resources which are helpful to families and children and adolescents. So let's take a look at workshop number 6, which is on problem solving in children. So how do I know my child's emotional level? How can I find that out? We'll be discussing that. How can I help my child to be more compliant? How can my child use CBT problem solving skills? And CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. Why is it important for you, the caregiver, to be part of this process? And how can you assist? So let's take a look. How do I find out my child's emotional level? Well, there's a thing we use in cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a thermometer reading. So from 0 to 10, with 10 being high, you want to ask your child, what's your number right now? Okay, once you find out what that number is, so let's say they say on a scale of 0 to 10, I'm an 8 in terms of I'm very anxious. Well, why did you give it that number? And you want the child to explain, well, I'm anxious because I'm having overwhelming feelings. I'm just about to do something that I'm very nervous about. I don't know how it's going to work out. So what would you like the number to be, higher or lower? Of course, hopefully the child will say, I'd like it to be lower. Okay. What number would it be more comfortable? I'd like it to be at least, a 4. Okay. So what do you think you can tell yourself to change your number? You said you were an 8. What maybe might make it a 7? And a child may say, well, if I relax a little bit more. Okay. What would make it a 6, a 5? Well, I don't know, Ma. What would? Well, what can you tell yourself to calm yourself down if you said you were anxious, if you said you were nervous, and you said maybe things may not work out? How can you change that number to calm yourself down? And sometimes if a child can't, sometimes it's good for you, the parent, to give the answer. It's okay to give the answer here. You can say, well, you're saying that it's not going to work out. Well, if it doesn't work out, what's the worst that can happen? It's not the end of the world. So you help your child with some of those verbal coping skills. How can I help my child be more compliant? Okay, so as a child matures, increasingly sometimes there's negativity come down, irritability, and it's just their misguided ways of dealing with an adult. They're not an adult yet, so they don't have all the great communication skills. So what happens is the pattern of the child will provoke, and increasing negative feedback will come from the child, and it may be the worst thing you can do is give a child that criticism. So sometimes children and parents bump heads, and the child can be provoking in some ways and give negativity and yell at the child. Do not respond in kind. So you don't want to start giving negative and complaining thoughts to your child if your child's giving that to you. Okay, you're a role model. Also, the caretaker, both of the caretakers, if there's more than one, need to be 100% consistent with all guidelines, the rules, and the consequences. Don't change them. You start changing them, you're in for trouble. Okay? And also as the child, continues to, provoke and defy you, don't lose your control. Once again, that's very important. Okay? Also, don't start caving in because you have regret over the consequences, or you feel bad, or you feel sorry, you think you were too hard, or you said your tone of voice was too hard. Don't worry about that. You can always, fix that in your delivery as you go on, but don't cave in. Or all of a sudden you notice that your child, is pouting, or your child now has gotten, is compliant. Don't cave in. That's okay. Don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world. And negotiation can be an option. You can use that. You can do your homework. If once you do your homework, you can then play your video games for X amount of hours on Saturday or Sunday or tonight. Okay? Again, don't cave in. If you have those rules, once you start backpedaling, then your child knows that you're not serious, so don't backpedal. And positive reinforcement is always recommended, even the tiniest little things. You can even say to your child, you know what? You only complained a couple of times to me. Before, you would go on and on. I just want to say that, you were able to control yourself much better this time around. Okay, so how can my child use cognitive behavioral problem-solving skills? So you can do this with your child. Does your child have a goal? Let's say, I want to be able to follow the rules. I want to be able to go to school without being anxious in the morning. Okay, so those are just a few things I'm giving you, but what is your child's goal? So you ask your child, why is that important to you? When do you think you want to achieve that? Sometimes with certain things, a child will say, well, I want to achieve that, the next time. You say, well, maybe you want to be able to achieve not going to school without being anxious in the morning, maybe in a month from now. But children sometimes have the goal too quick. Who can help me? How can they help me? Maybe grandma can help me. Maybe mom, you can say something. What are the things or resources do I need to have? Sometimes if you're in the lunchroom, a child's in the lunchroom, they're anxious, well, maybe if they pulled out a game, or maybe they wrote in their journal. So what resources? Does the teacher need to know what I'm going through? That's a resource. What are my next best steps? So I want to kind of put, well, what's the next step I'm going to do to achieve my goal? You write out a whole bunch of steps, but then help the children pick out the best steps. How will I know I've achieved my goal? Well, maybe I go to school, and I'm on time. Maybe I follow 5 of the rules of the family. So how do I know I've achieved it? So why is it important for the caregiver to be part of this process? Well, with the thermometer, the child finds that it's user-friendly, and when prompted, it's a quick, easy prompt to use. Also, children need structure and actually thrive with it, despite their complaining. They will complain, let it go in one ear and out the other. They're supposed to complain, they're adolescents. And if you remember, if you were a kid, often you complained or wanted things a certain way. With consistency, it provides a child with a sense of security. This is why you have to be 100% consistent and not backpedal. Once you backpedal, the child's sense of security gets threatened, even if in little doses. So don't backpedal, do it 100%. Children also feel a sense of care, love, and concern when the caregivers are involved. So you're providing that. That's very important for your child. They also need guidance, because as each developmental stages occur, things are new to them, and so you're there to guide them. Also, problem solving are tools that children don't come with. They don't automatically acquire them. They need assistance. So with each problem, you can work on the problem solving exercise that I gave you. And chance of greater success, it's really important. So how can you assist? You're going to do some work. You're going to do the thermometer exercise with your child. Do it also when your child feels good. How anxious are you? I'm a 2 right now, Ma. Well, what makes you a 2? You want to hear those good times as well. Ask your child to identify a problem situation, and then together do the problem-solving exercise. Do it when there's not a big problem happening. Do it with the small things. Identify your strengths when helping your child to be compliant. So what are the things that work for you? How are you being 100%? How are you telling yourself, I can do this, or this is a thing that I want to put in place? What are some of your strengths? And also identify the areas you need to improve or polish up on when you're helping your child to be compliant. Like I said before, maybe your tone of voice, maybe you're repeating yourself too much to your child, and your child's getting frustrated with you repeating it all the time. So maybe you need a better way to explain to your child's teacher or the family members what's going on with your child. So again, what's the stuff that you two can also polish up on? So, all the best to you and your family, and again, make sure, don't forget, do your homework.